Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's January 17th, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop, and I've just got it kind of rolling through. You can see that low pressure center at least aloft as it went into the Oregon coast. I want you to pay attention to that because this is the upper level look at the low, and so you might think that, hey, the low pressure went in here. Why didn't we stay in kind of a cooler north flow here across some of western Washington and whatnot? But I'll show you why that is here in a minute. We'll break this down. If you take a look here, what I've overlain here is about where the low pressure center was, and I'll show you why, and I'll show you some of the readings and the observations of that as well. Again, this infrared satellite imagery picking up the upper level atmosphere here of that low pressure center rolling on into the Oregon coastline. And if we look at where everything was lined up here at 11:59 p.m. last night, you can see the actual lowest pressure here was there at Quileute here, and you saw that upper level feature move into Oregon. But as you can see across Portland and some of southwest Washington, the pressure was much higher than it was on the Washington coast. So that low pressure was elongated a bit north, as you can see. And now you can kind of catch that here as well. I'm going to back this up, and you can kind of see that low pressure center spinning there, and the low pressure again probably associated right about there, and you can kind of see that moves up towards Vancouver Island as we went through very early late last night and very early this morning here. So just kind of going over some of that. We did have some discussions about that in some of my local weather groups, and this is one more look at it here. The NAM 3KM, this is at 30,000 feet here, and you can see again the upper levels of the atmosphere showing that low pressure center into Oregon, and it also shows that on the infrared satellite imagery. But we know now that low pressure center, the surface low, was a bit further north there. Now, anyway, taking a look here, there was still some freezing drizzle going on at Portland, still the ice storm warning. This will be wrapping up as we go through the day today, and we are going to warm up across western Oregon, much of western Washington here as we go through the day today, except for areas further north, and we'll look at some of the weather models on that here in a moment. But you can see Portland, check it out, freezing drizzle still ongoing this morning. It got up over 2/10 of ice accretion out there officially, I believe. It looks like 1/1600ths of an inch there, but it's probably up towards about 2/10 of an inch by now. But you can see the freezing rain ongoing all the way into this morning, now freezing drizzle there across the Portland metro. Winter weather advisory has been dropped for Seattle. We just went above freezing here in Normandy Park here a couple hours ago. We're like at 32.7 or something right now, and there's probably still some areas that are below freezing out there. Very slick conditions. Some of Seattle reporting freezing rain out there. SeaTac was reporting freezing rain. Boeing Field was getting freezing rain this morning. Also, some very slick conditions. Many school districts are outright closed today. There's a lot of delays, so make sure to check here. I don't know if I'll even get the video out here in time. I'm sure everybody that's going to school knows about the closures and delays at this point. And you can still see the winter storm warning here across some of western Whatcom County and some of the Cascades, and some big snow still occurring across Vancouver Island and southwest BC as well as we go through the day today. And look out towards eastern Washington. You can see the big snows that are going to be incoming here. This is 10 p.m. Tuesday through 4 a.m. Thursday here. So this is going to be ongoing as we go through the day today and on in through tomorrow. And of course, the big snowfalls across some of the Cascades also. And there is the potential for some freezing rain. Doesn't look like a huge event. Better amounts probably down towards Tri-Cities here. And we'll watch this one as we go. And I'll show you some of the weather models in that here in a moment. But looking at the upper levels of the atmosphere, this is last night's European run here. And you can see at 5,000 feet, you know, this is why Seattle didn't really get snow out of this, or even up towards Everett. It's because the upper levels of the atmosphere were pretty warm during the day yesterday, even towards 2,500 feet. Some of that warm air got even all the way up into British Columbia. But as this low pressure center came on, you know, it pivoted and it started to bring some of that cooler air. So that's why you got snow across some of Whatcom County. I think even some of Skagit County was getting a bit of snowfall as well, and snow across southwest BC and Vancouver Island. So as we go on in through tonight, you can see some cooler air arriving aloft, but by this time, all this Arctic air has been scoured out of a lot of western Washington here. So this is a completely different air mass. And across portions of Vancouver Island and southwest BC, you might keep it as some lower snow levels there, but we're not expecting this to be snow down into the Seattle metro, for example. And then we go off into the extended a little bit more. Now here we are into Friday morning, and you can see things really warming up west of the Cascades and even getting some warmer air aloft into places east of the Cascades also. And we're going to go through a pattern change here and start to bring some stormier, wetter, more normal winter weather here across the Pacific Northwest with some mountain snows and lower elevation rainfall. Now, taking a look at the HRRR, the 3KM high resolution model, you're looking at the temperatures this morning kind of hanging on right around freezing for a lot of areas. Still could be some areas below freezing, still accumulating some of that ice as we go through this morning. And again, I'm right next to the Puget Sound here in Normandy Park, and the roadway was basically kind of like a sheet of ice ice with a little bit of melting going on. Extremely treacherous. I could barely walk out on my front walkway this morning. So be very careful if you are just now venturing outside. It can look wet and it can be extremely slick. Probably about a tenth of an inch of ice accretion officially at my house on all my plants and deck and whatnot and objects on my deck out there currently. And as we scroll through this morning, you can see the slow, arduous warm up here. But once you go above freezing, you're going to start melting things, and it's going to get better as we go through the day today. Look at that, up towards 40 maybe for some of the Seattle area, and it starts to warm up Everett and maybe up towards some of Skagit County as we go on in through the day today. But some of this snow is going to be continuing on across Whatcom County and some of Southwest BC also. And so we may drop down a little bit here as we go through tomorrow morning, but that Arctic air mass is going to be scoured out. We are moistening things up and warming things up as we go through the next couple of days. And this is looking at my house. You can see the temperatures during the day yesterday. So we were at 34, 35 degrees, but the dew point was much different here. And let's just go ahead and click on the dew point there also and update that. And you can see the low dew points here. So it had a big difference between the temperature and the dew point. And once that precipitation started falling here, it cools the atmosphere, and you can see how the temperatures cooled down and went below freezing there sometime right around 8 o'clock last night. And the dew point rises, the temperature falls, and they kind of meet there in the middle. And you can see we spent quite a bit of time below 32 degrees all the way through this morning before things finally started to warm up at just about 5 a.m. here. So you got some pretty good ice accretion out there. And as you know, this is the case for a lot of the Seattle area and much of the Puget Sound here across the Pacific Northwest. Now, taking a look here, I actually clicked on one of these observations up here on one of these Seattle locations, and you can see how it spent quite a few hours there at 31 degrees as this event was ongoing there across some of northeast Seattle. And if I scroll on in through here, this I believe is Boeing Field. You can see that we did spend some time below freezing there as well. If we go back, you can kind of see the temperature at 30 and 31 as we went through the overnight and the early morning hours. So even Boeing Field was getting freezing rain out there last night and this morning. And the NAM3 cam didn't do too bad. I mean, maybe we had a tenth of an inch here. In some areas, it looks like they got more out there as well. So the models did pretty darn right good with this setup here. And that evaporative cooling dropped us back down below freezing just enough to really glaze, many of the walkways out there and, some of the houses and trees, and in some cases, some of the roadways. Now, looking at the European last night's run here. So here we go through this morning. We're going to go through that warm up, but you can see the snow continuing across some of Whatcom County and Southwest BC. That starts to wane as we go through the night tonight. And then we get another system up here, and that one could be kind of a freezing rainmaker for eastern portions, or maybe back in the passes where some cold air is trapped. Could start off with some snow again across Southwest BC as we go on in through the day Thursday as well. And then you can see some of that freezing rain moving a bit further inland here towards eastern Washington as we go through the day Friday. So we'll watch that one. Doesn't look like a huge freezing rain event, however. And then we've really warmed up here west of the Cascades and scoured a lot of that. Actually, all of that Arctic air will be gone. That air mass will be a distant memory. We'll have moistened things up. Those chapped lips are going to become a thing of the past here as well. Now, this is the cumulated positive snow depth change. So you can kind of see where the snow has been flying as we go through the day today, mainly up again across Whatcom County, Southwest BC there, and then eastern Washington as we go on through the day today. You can kind of see Spokane getting up towards 5 inches of snow on the ground there as well. And then another round as we go through Thursday, maybe a little bit more for Spokane here, eastern Washington piling it up a bit here. And the Cascades really getting a nice shot of snowfall here, as well as BC and some of the Idaho Panhandle and western Montana. Now, taking a look at Bellingham, I showed this yesterday. This is the freezing line right here, 0 degrees Celsius. And for Bellingham, you can see virtually the entire column of the atmosphere is below freezing. That's why it's snow up north here. So kind of interesting look at things there. And I'm going to show you Seattle here in a moment. But you can see as we scroll all the way back towards this morning, you can see still below average the entire column of the atmosphere. That's why they're not dealing with freezing rain for actually southern Whatcom County might actually, I think I saw a report for that. But you can see much of the area up north spending the entire column of the atmosphere below freezing. However, if you go down to Boeing Field, you can see this would be yesterday yesterday afternoon, you can see the difference between the dew point and the temperature again. So you know you're going to have that evaporative cooling once the precipitation starts falling through the column of the atmosphere, even though it was above freezing yesterday. So if you're not paying attention, you can be like, hey, it's above freezing and the atmosphere above that is above freezing, so we're not going to get any freezing rain. But then you look at what happens when you get that evaporative cooling. The temperature drops below freezing there at the surface while the upper levels of the atmosphere are still above. So the rain falls through that and then it coats and freezes in that sub-freezing layer right there at the surface. And as we know, that continued on in through last night into early this morning, kind of hanging on into early this morning as well. So that's why we got that freezing rain here. The models did pretty good with that. And, you know, I talked about this last night, that it was going to kind of be a very marginal event, but we did have that potential for glazing surfaces over. Now taking a little bit of a look here at the extended forecast. Here we go with that system kind of swinging through. It tries to bring a little bit of cooler air into the area, but this is not a major polar low by any means, and we are going to be getting rid of this Arctic air mass here. But you can see we're going to be swinging some more systems at the Pacific Northwest and much of the West Coast as we go through the extended forecast. You continue to see systems moving in here. We're going to have some atmospheric river potential as well as we go towards the end of January, and we'll go into that a little bit more detail. I'll show some other maps here in a moment. Starting with the same map here, actually European, but this is 6-hour precipitation. And again, scouring out that Arctic air finally. And then we start to continue to bring systems actually as we go through the end of January here. You can see one after another potential atmospheric river signals kind of showing up here. And you can see the European wants to bring a deep low right up towards Vancouver Island in the very extended, purely fantasy right now, but kind of an interesting look there. And the GFS has something similar in the similar time frame there as well. So it kind of makes you just kind of take pause and think, yeah, maybe we might be active here as we go towards the end of January. Now here's the GFS. Again, scouring that Arctic air mass out of here, and then we continue to bring some systems and some more ordinary lower elevation rain and mountain snows here through the extended forecast. You continue to see these frontal systems roll on in here, and you can see maybe the atmospheric river potential, and then the GFS also shows that deeper low trying to move up towards Vancouver Island in the similar time frame as the European. So something fun to watch off in Fantasyland right now. Take it with a grain of salt, but it does look like we're going to remain active through January. Here's the 10-day precipitation anomaly here on the European on the left versus the GFS on the right. And this shows that West Coast here, you know, we might be above average as we go on in through the 10-day period here coming up. Again, we'll break these down day by day, so don't put too much stock into that just yet. Here's a 2-meter temperature anomaly as we look 5 to 10 days out here as well. Definitely warming up and getting rid of that Arctic air mass. This is what's known as the Pacific North American Oscillation, and you can kind of see where we are now in the negative territory here. We're getting troughs kind of moving closer towards the Pacific Northwest here. And as we get back into positive, that means the storm track moves a bit further out over the Pacific Ocean, and we're caught in more of a southwest and warmer flow. And you can kind of see that existing towards the end of January all the way in through February here as well. You know, this is not a hard and fast rule or anything like that, but this kind of shows you that we may be getting some more El Nino-ish weather returning here as we go on in towards the end of January and February. But anyway, yeah, I've been so busy last night. Obviously, you've been following me on Twitter. There was a bit of weather drama there yesterday. Won't get into it on here, but check that out on Twitter if you really want to know more. Yeah, so anyway, it's still interesting out there. Be careful on the walkways especially. I mean, even though I knew it was freezing rain, I tried to step outside and take some pictures, and I just... had the handrail not been next to me, I would have been on my butt. It is so slick out there. So be very careful out there. You guys know about the school closures and everything. And this Arctic air mass here in the next several hours will be a distant memory here for a lot of Western Oregon and Western Washington, except across some Whatcom County, Southwest BC, and of course places east. It's going to take a while longer to warm things up as well. But anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.